Hiding stuff in video games has been an art since 1973. You might have heard that Atari's Adventure has this particular Easter egg that is often credited as the first Easter egg ever created thanks to a certain film's mistake. This is wrong. Moonlander, created in 1973 and released shortly after Pong, allows you to crash into a McDonald's in, and I quote, a Claude-like fashion. But the Easter egg in Adventure might still be another different first. That is, the first secret room ever found within a video game. There's nothing special to this room, it's out of the way as it wasn't designed for the player to find it, and it holds a singular message. Created by Warren Robinette. But what is interesting about hidden rooms in games is that they have evolved past being Easter eggs. They are now a game mechanic you've definitely seen in some shape or form, and all you have to do to find them is look for the cracks. Which is honestly pretty gross, and you shouldn't be looking at people in places they may not want to be looked, much less bombed. I mean, secret rooms don't always have to hide some sort of secret, though I admit these kinds of secret rooms are the ones that call your attention the most. Refer to the secret room in Serious Sam 2001. This game had a troubling time at getting released, because publishers didn't really seem to enjoy it. Something about the game didn't click for all of them, despite the fact that at the time, it was an extremely well put together tech demo for an insane game engine, one of the first examples of level of detail implementation to render large areas and stampedes of enemies at a time. And yet, the technical capabilities or open testing innovations didn't do it. What did then? Old Man Murray. Not you, Mr. Murray, you're still pretty hip for your age! You see, this group was a prominent reviewer known for being a 2000s version of Video Game Donkey. I'm not kidding, Donkey could read these reviews and none of us would ever notice. Maybe he does? Donkey? Okay, no, these guys were a lot more vulgar, so consider this your content warning for reading any of the articles I've captured for this video. They use the R word freely. Many of the reviews were overly harsh on criticizing menial aspects while still having some truth to what they said, and the review of Serious Sam was excessively positive. Now, what menial aspect did they focus on? Well, of course,
Great.
They did a gag article where they judged games by the metric of time it takes to find a barrel, a pot, or a crate. This article had quite the impact, and soon after, they got their hands on the free demo for Serious Sam, which they thought was excessively refreshing in the level design being so open, and the usage of a bright and colorful art style to juxtapose the gore and violence, as opposed to using dark and grainy color schemes to sell people on the seriousness. Now don't that sound familiar? And then, among this overtly political and bigoted interview that has about as much commentary on the actual game as it does on their American patriotic boner, they noticed there was not a single crate. Now, this was just a coincidence because the Serious Sam engine calculated all collisions with circles as it is computationally cheaper than cubes. They didn't think to add crates because their engine would work sillily with them. But that was enough for publishers to start looking at the game funny. The game picked traction, acclaim, and then it was published. And then they added a secret map with a goddamn pyramid of crates.
And also, the two writers of Old Man Murray ended up being the main writers of Portal, so guess who's looking the most like a clown now?
I'm getting to say that secret rooms in games can be Easter eggs as easily as they can be inside jokes, references, or an intentional game mechanic.
The thing about secret rooms in Serious Sam is that they are no longer just an Easter egg. Sure, they have been used for Easter eggs, but now they become a game mechanic.
I mean, Zelda games have done it in all sorts of ways. I bet that if you played Tears of the Kingdom in the past weeks, you probably chucked explosives at a wall and watched it collapse while thinking, huh, this again? But A Link to the Past actually did something very different way before, and I think it's pretty funny when you think about it. Chris Houlihan is that dude, probably. He exists, maybe, but he is directly name-dropped in a secret room, where they got the privilege of being featured thanks to their victory on a Nintendo Power magazine contest, where the reward was their name appearing somewhere in a future Zelda title, which ultimately ended up being this room with 255 rupees and a sign that reads, "My name is Chris Houlihan. This is my top secret room. Keep it between us, okay?" So, how can one access this room? Well, you don't. Not on purpose. This room is a failsafe. It's intended to be used as the default case when Link switches to a different room which has been undefined. Old games do that very much, since crashing was a very big no-no at the time. They often implemented a system in some form that directed the player subtly without crashing the game. In this case, dropping Link in a generic room that pushes them back into the world as if nothing happened, which also happens to be an amazing place to put a name you have the legal obligation to put without actually putting it anywhere anyone might see it. You've heard of loopholes, but man, this is a loop quarry.
I hate you.
Wasn't even in other versions of the
hate
game,
you
they
more
were
than
done
anyone I
excessively
know.
dirty. But really, Zelda is a great franchise to analyze how intentional secret rooms are designed at their core. The game establishes a design pattern, suspiciously allows the player to break that pattern through some sort of hint, and then BOOM! Reward for being curious. About as rewarding as subscribing to this channel, but a little less.
Though, admittedly, once you're guiding the player to them, they are no longer secret rooms and sort of become more like breakable walls. Still, they will work for the purpose of this video as I reach the larger topic of secret rooms and how they have evolved in gaming. If we did not have breakable walls as a mechanic, secret rooms would not have evolved.
It's a very straightforward mechanic to reward observation, a skill often required in puzzle games and exploration games where you want the player to pay attention. This is often depicted with the usage of cracked walls, but there are examples of walls that don't look all that different, where the hint is often a layout of items intended to be or look unusual. Zelda has instances of NPCs hinting at secret walls, for example, such as in Ocarina of Time, where a Goron will hint at the breakable wall making a different noise when struck with your sword. Or in Wind Waker, which has a dungeon where you must reflect light onto your past mistakes through puzzle to open some walls weaker than my will to live after I spent 3 months on a video that got at most 2,000 views. In fact, Wind Waker urges you to learn about these rooms by making secret walls an explicit mechanic recurrently, as reaching the final boss of the game requires the player to destroy a secret wall. But see, this is why Zelda is such a good example. It has reached a big range of setups for this mechanic, whether it's as an easter egg, an intentional secret, or a failsafe. And they've done it since the very first instances of the franchise. I think secret walls as a mechanic shine greatly in roguelike games. Ah, my eyes! Actually, no. They are impossible to see and you can almost never know where they are, because roguelike games often generate their maps progressively by having an algorithm figure it out for them, since replayability is an important part of those games. Which means the game itself is going to hide the secret room and no one will be able to know it's there. So how do you hint the player to find them? Simple. You force them to learn how the maps are built and then just have it happen by mistake the first time. See, that sounds dumb, but that's the deal. Roguelike games don't reward observation in the same way open world games do. For starters, you're supposed to have hundreds of fronts in only one of the genres, but more importantly, a designer didn't get to make each map in them. However, a designer did get to choose where the secret rooms might appear, how to find their location, or even what is allowed to open them. And thus, as you play the game recurrently, you are likely to see, by random chance, that one of these rooms exists. Here's where you'll probably learn how the game hides the secret room. For example, in The Binding of Isaac, secret rooms can be in almost any adjacent room and can be opened by explosions going off besides them. But context clues allow you to lower down the possibilities, then choose where you want to gamble your precious resource for the contents of the secret room. Things such as ensuring possible adjacent rooms don't have items where the doorway could be, rooms that could have a door but look like dead ends, or even the amount of nearby rooms that don't have a connection when they easily could. Take a look at Enter the Gungeon, where secret rooms can spawn almost in any place at any time, but you can check way more cheaply by shooting at the walls with your non-starting gun, where the cracks will reveal themselves and await for you to use another important game resource, blanks, to reveal their location. This is a really cool thing about secret rooms. You most likely find them during your second row, yeehaw! The first playthrough is always more muddy and unexperienced. More to it, the game probably didn't give you the tools for you to find them. Enter LEGO Indiana Jones. These games have a cool characteristic, which is how every character has a set of particular skills they can use, and levels are built and designed around these ideas. If you'll carry Indiana Jones with his whip and Salah with his shovel, then the level will most likely have puzzles involving these mechanics. However, you might find a suspicious wall that is completely out of place and have no clue on what to do with it. That is, until
several levels later, where you'll encounter objects that are color-coded the exact same way,
while playing with another character. You're supposed to go into this level after you've beaten it previously and select the character with the ability that opens that wall. Play through, open the wall, and voila! You got a perfect reward for observing, remembering, and replaying. It's C-3PO having an anxiety attack and imploding into the atmosphere! Relatable, to be fair. Secret rooms have been hidden in many ways throughout history. They exist in this spot between things you're not supposed to find, but things you are intended to find. Because of this, secret rooms often end up hiding some pretty crazy stuff. Undertale's Gaster is a prominent example. When you start a new game, it assigns a variable in your save file called fun, which dictates what sort of random events you might find, such as getting a call from Sans regarding your refrigerator status, additional elements being added to graphics that you'll have to encounter, or NPCs that will burden you with their existential dread. Yay! The thing is, among the possibilities of fun values, there's values 65 and 66. This allows the player's entrance into secret rooms that hide more secrety secrets. The first one is a strange sound test with bad music that is composed of 6-second loops, but then there's one singular song, titled Gaster's Theme, that will kick you out halfway through listening. The second one is a room that has this singular figure which will run away when you interact with it. Or, well, more like fade out? This is one of the most popular examples of the newer types of secret rooms we're starting to see, which are just random chance Easter eggs that have their own little piece of relevance for something that is baked. something which often requires meta knowledge or information that isn't native to what the player could find in the game, i.e. the actual narrative. On that note, Undertale did something similar to Zelda by hiding the Kickstarter backer whose character was to be in the game, but it was done in a more tasteful way.
If you read this sign on October 10th, you get access to a whole boss battle dedicated to this backer.
Yeah, it was used as an Easter egg, but at least you intended to find it. There's even a whole extra shop to shout out the artist of the games, which is visitable by completing a puzzle, and I think that makes these rooms more memorable. You revealed the secret, so now you're more emotionally invested in these locations. Doom in particular has a really unique way of hinting at the secret's existence. We've seen methods where casuality and replaying is expected, and we've seen methods where observation and replaying is expected. But Doom didn't get the luxury of these methods. People didn't know cheating games can be hidden as much as they do now, despite the fact that the secret room with all the warps in Mario 1 was definitely a popular discovery. Hey, remember establishing a design pattern that can be suspiciously broken? Yeah, me too. When you beat a level in Doom, the game goes, haha, you fucking idiot! You didn't find any secrets? LaMail, you're so dumb! I bet you haven't even watched Smash Tomatoes' content. It's weird. Why would the game count kills and items the same way it does secrets? And then you realize the game is as much about exploration as it is about killing demons by shooting them into Swiss cheese. Not only that, previous games with secret rooms such as Wolfenstein didn't have any hints to tell the player about these rooms. You were expected to bump into walls like an idiot for minutes at a time to find them. Doom fixed that by telling everybody involved to always add hints for secrets, such as this cool example with an arrow being used in the map to point the existence of a secret door. Now, I bring up Doom because there's one last thing I have to talk about when it comes to secret rooms. I already explained how they were made and why, as well as show many examples and variations of them, but there's one type of secret room I am missing because it's relatively new. That's when the entire game is a secret room. I mean, nowadays, a popular secret room we've seen a few times is often a depiction of the backrooms, very literally found when falling off the bounds. But I'm not talking about that, though the game I'm talking about does do that, but you know, and it's not a game, it's more like a thing. I'm talking about MyHouse.wad. It's not a Weaver ROM, it's a map for Doom. This map's premise is simple. A dude found some old maps his friend made a long time ago, printed it up and posted it online. It's a recreation of the friend's house with some Doom enemies in them, and at first it appears pretty harmless, but the more you play, the more silly things you may start to notice. For example, the music will slightly offset itself, enemies will reappear, their house's layout will distort itself, and things that you cannot... Why are you looking at me like that? And things that you can spot from inside will no longer appear on the outside. But then you might notice some of these things that are slightly off give you items that allow you to enter secret places in the house. Like this moving bookshelf that reveals a secret room after enough house has been explored. This room will scream at you to get out because they are playing Minecraft. Doomsday will arrive at the house and it will be pounded and sold the second you leave. 2023 is crazy. And yet after all that, the secret counter will be suspiciously low. Turns out the house has more secrets hiding within, or rather, the secret house which is found after leaving the house and going back in. You can flood the house by messing with all the sinks, and you can even go into a different version of the secret house by trying to explore the reflection of this mirror. From here, the room basically has a plethora of secret rooms and hidden rooms which are found by finding secret items on secret rooms and noticing weird details in unusual rooms which could be considered secret rooms depending on who you ask. You shoot a track, you find against a nice doggy, get stalked across the street, and listen to a mysterious song which is really just an indie rock track by an indie band that did music but they didn't get too popular. But really, the amazing complexity and variety of all the creepy and scary hidden rooms in this map is incredibly creative, and the game would still not count any of it as secrets, as only the final room of the entire experience, after solving it completely, is considered a secret. And I love these secret rooms that rush and doll into each other, because they sorta end up forming their own little game mechanics that connect everything together in a bizarrely logical way. Almost everything was built to hint at something happening beyond the game's presented narrative, similar to what we've seen in Undertale, but the deal here is that none of it is hidden behind randomness. It really goes forth to this idea I mentioned earlier on things you are meant to find, but not supposed to find. It's subtly presented as something you shouldn't be witnessing, while keeping those deliberate elements of purposefulness that intend to weird you out. It's thanks to this conflicting dynamic that secret rooms feel scary, even when they are nothing but inside jokes and might contain nothing unusual within. It's not a response to a presented mechanic, but rather an emotional one. And not many game mechanics have evolved into this emotional realm, and I don't mean the storytelling elements, but rather the more abstract sides of the communication video games as a medium can have. It's a very abstract emotion that is best described simply by experiencing it, I suppose. You're not supposed to be here, but here's a cookie, some hot cocoa, a nice fireplace, a knife that will kill you 2 years from now, and our finest pastries. Basically, the way a mechanic is framed can affect our perception of it. In this case, how much intention did the player feel they had when finding the secret? If you wanted to find a secret room beforehand, then you got feedback, as opposed to the unexpectedness of your suspicion being correct when you expected not to. It's cool that despite being a trope, they found the off-putting aspect of these areas and decided to abuse it as much as they could, creating a whole new version of the trope entirely. And now's when you start to see exactly why I brought up the Serious Sam example. I wanted to point out how game mechanic tropes shouldn't be used as a weapon to express if a game is good or bad. All this does is force designers to feel uncomfortable and hide away from doing these mechanics, which is counterproductive to the medium. We shouldn't push for tropes to be removed, but rather for them to be innovated. You don't have to remove your water level, just make swimming fun. You don't have to erase quick time events, just make them feel natural. And you don't have to keep every room visible, just make finding secret rooms more meaningful to the player. That is why secret rooms can be so cool, because they are versatile and you can do all sorts of stuff with them, despite being a trope. You can always get creative. So get creative, unleash your creative juices, defy all conventions, and hide that secret sex game in God of War 2!